Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Daysi Garcia, and I'm the head coach and founder of the PUC Excel Boxing Club. It's a gang prevention boxing program at PUC Excel Charter Academy in Lincoln Heights. And like a lot of people in the room, I was born and raised in Los Angeles. I actually grew up right down the street in Pico Union. So it's really surreal to stand here today because I was here before this existed, and this used to be my backyard. And not a lot of people, want to talk about what that used to look like, but it's something that I'll never forget. And it informs a lot of the work that I do today. Like a lot of inner city kids growing up in Los Angeles, I had to learn at a very early age that if I was one mistake away from becoming a statistic. So my education in survival started as early as elementary school, where educators, coaches, and even the lunch ladies would remind us that the zip code that we grew up in could determine a lot about our life. So by the time that I got to middle school, I started to understand a little bit more about what they were trying to say. They explained that we were born in a community that was ravaged by the war on drugs, that survived the 1992 riots. But there was something different. We were also in a community that was now being funded by LA84. So I grew up at the youth centers right down the street. I learned how to swim at the Los Angeles Red Shield. I learned how to run with Student Run LA. I got my first pair of running shoes at the Nike Run LA training runs that were free, accessible training runs that were hosted all over the city. And that changed my life. By the time I got to high school, I was ambitious enough to do things like try out for the boys varsity basketball team as a freshman and make it. And it was all fun and games until I became the first high school graduate in my family. Like most first-generation students, I had to go to college or I was going to be disowned. And it wasn't easy. Before I knew it, I became a two-school dropout. And that was something that I never thought would happen. That was something that I tried really hard to prevent. But that was the reality. The week that I dropped out the second time, I got a phone call from somebody in my neighborhood. There's another youth center in Pico Union called the Graph Lab. And they called me up and they said, you know what, we just started a boxing program. So if you're not doing anything, and I wasn't, you should come through. So I did. I don't know why I showed up. I never boxed before. I was able to do some of the traditional sports through the LA84 funded programs, but I didn't even know that other sports existed. I didn't know that fencing existed. I didn't know that squash existed. And I knew that boxing existed because, a lot of people box in my neighborhood and they call it fighting, but it wasn't something that was accessible to me. We didn't have a gym that existed in Pico Union. Before I knew it, in 6 months, I was put on a pathway to law school out of that boxing gym. I found out that there was something I found out that collegiate boxing existed, and I couldn't believe that nobody else was talking about it. Because when I sparred somebody on the USC boxing team for the first time, that's all I could talk about for the rest of the month, That was the flex. I said, I hit that guy, he goes to USC, and looking back now, like, what an interesting story to feel like you need to share. So when I got accepted into law school, of course I got accepted the first year of the pandemic, and I didn't even set foot inside the law school. So I was paranoid about becoming a statistic again, and I didn't want to compromise myself this time, and what I did different this time was I asked for help. So the mentors that I had in my life that time said, you know what, put pause, get a game plan, law school's no joke. The fact that you survived 1 year, you're already a statistic in a good way, but find your footing. And that's when I signed up to become a tutor at the PUC Excel Charter Academy. I don't like to talk a lot about what I saw those first couple of months when I worked there because I don't think a lot of people want to talk about that time. We were dealing with some serious issues with the student body. We were dealing with gun violence issues. We were dealing with drug issues. And almost all of the kids in the neighborhood, we're all neighbors. Everybody knows each other. Everybody has some connection to some family member. They didn't even have the language to explain what they were going through. And it was a really unique time because we couldn't deal with our students in the usual ways that we usually do. We couldn't tell them to go outside. The traditional sports weren't allowed to be hosted on campus. So that's when I tried to do something different, and I said, I'm just a tutor right now, but what do you guys want to do? And I shared a little bit about my background, and I warned them. I said, listen, I don't want you guys to get sent to boot camp at 12 years old like I did, I don't want you guys to be a victim of gun violence. So what are you guys interested in doing? Here's what I can contribute. And when I brought up boxing, that's when everybody said, you know what? If you find a way to bring boxing to this middle school, then we'll show up. We'll have your back and we'll do our part. So with the support of the community, with the support of the administration, it's not easy to get a boxing program at an inner city school in Los Angeles. We made it happen. I put my law school student hat on and I said, you know what? My lived experience actually is starting to mean something today. And because I'm in the intersection of, law, sports, and I work with youth, give me this opportunity and I promise, we're gonna do something with it. Before I knew it, I had 30 kids signed up. Our after-school program was full, and we only had boxing at that time. And little by little, towards the spring semester, we started to get a little bit more comfortable introducing the traditional sports again, but we were surprised that most of the kids wanted to do boxing. So once I understood that this was real, I had to figure out, well, how am I gonna go to law school and how am I gonna keep this boxing program going? Because I was one of those kids. I remember every single person that came to the union and used me for a photo opportunity. I remember every single person that promised me that they would come back. I remember every single athlete that said, you know what, we're gonna start this, and they never did. So I could not do that to my students. One day, the stars aligned, and I saw an opportunity to apply for an LA84 grant, and I said, this is crazy. How could I not do this, I know I'm a product from this funding. Let me see what happens. And I wrote a couple of initiatives, and I said, if they give us the money, I'm gonna take care of the rest. So what ended up happening was we won. And that was the first grant that I ever wrote. This is, the first youth program that I'm running, but the initiatives that me and the students came up with were real, and I was really happy that organizations that are here to support the community, understood that. So we did something really special, and we said, if you guys give us the money, this is what we're gonna do. And we're starting to do it now. The first thing that we did was, and you guys can look to the right for the next slide, we started the first PUC Excel Collegiate Boxing Scholarship. And last November, we were able to give 10 students $500 scholarships to start a college fund and to start the conversation about, what's a pathway to collegiate boxing. The second thing that we did was we decided that we wanted to curate our own sports library on campus because like my students, we don't know about a lot of the sports that exist in the world. We know that the Olympics exist, we know that there's champions everywhere, but there's still so many sports that are not accessible to our students. So we're in the middle of curating, stories about failure, stories about growth, stories about quitting, and we're gonna make that happen this year. The other thing that we decided to work on was we wanted to start a job training program because I started working when I was 13 years old. I'm tall, so they thought I was 15 years old, but nobody checked. And we're calling it first jab and first job. And now that we have, we got some support, there's a lot more work to be done. And we're starting to have conversations now about play equity in a different way. We want to see play day in the juvenile halls. We want to make sure that incarcerated students, have an opportunity to play, move, engage, socialize, and do some sports. And it's not easy. Right now, it's a one day at a time situation, just like we started, but we want to write a different story, and we want to include all of you in it. One thing that we tell each other all the time in the gym is, well, the first thing we say is if you can get punched in the face, then you can probably finish your homework. But the second thing that we say is we're all in community with each other. You know, everybody has the same 24 hours in a day, and all of us are neighbors. So if I leave you with one thing today, it's that we need your support, and that can look like a lot of different ways. If you've never boxed, you have an open invitation to come visit the club. If you're curious about how boxing chips away at the school to prison pipeline, come talk to our kids. If you want to learn about how to teach trauma-informed boxing, how to bring that workshop to your campus, to your staff, talk to our club, because we're interested in doing that kind of work with our program. This program started as a community-based boxing program, and it's going to remain that. Every single person that comes through that program all our services will always be free. Right now, it's fueled just on love, volunteers, and community members, and abuelitas that are, find the time to make us food sometimes to give to the kids, and we want to see more of that. So thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be here today. And I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for some of you. And I really mean that. I'm born and raised in LA, so I wouldn't say something that I don't mean because I got the proof. I have the photos. I have the photos playing on this lot before it existed. I have the photos at the youth centers with some of you, with probably some of you. So if you're interested in getting involved, please reach out. Even if you're interested in, learning how to throw a punch, the doors are open. We're here in the community, and we want to see more boxing because even if it doesn't make sense to everybody else, we know that boxing saves lives. Thank you so much.